Janelle Rivers folded the resignation letter with trembling hands. After 11 months as a nanny to the Wells twins, she'd finally had enough. It wasn't the long hours or the strict schedules. It was the coldness, the way their mother, Victoria Wells, treated parenting like corporate management. No warmth, no spontaneity, just rules, routines, and perfection. This is not a story about a nanny who simply quit. It's about the quiet breaking point of a woman who loved two children enough to leave them, until those same children showed her that sometimes the people we're trying to protect are actually trying to save us. To understand how Janelle arrived at this breaking point, you need to know what 11 months in the Wells household really looked like. The Wells estate sat at the summit of Pacific Heights, a penthouse so pristine it felt more like a museum than a home where children lived. Every surface gleamed, every object had its place. The grandfather clock in the foyer ticked with mechanical precision, marking time in a household where spontaneity had died alongside a beloved husband and father. Janelle had arrived 11 months ago with hope in her heart and ghosts on her heels. After 18 years in foster care, she understood what it meant to live in a house that wasn't a home. She promised herself that if she ever worked with children, she'd give them what she'd never had: consistent love, genuine affection, a safe place to be imperfect. What she found was a beautiful prison. Victoria Wells ran her home like a Fortune 500 company. Meals were scheduled to the minute. Playtime was structured and educational. Bedtime was non-negotiable. Emotions were acknowledged but never indulged. The twins, Hazel and Harper, were 7 years old, bright and achingly obedient. They didn't throw tantrums. They didn't make messes. They colored inside the lines, spoke in quiet voices, and asked permission before touching anything. They were perfect, and they were slowly starving. Victoria wasn't cruel, she was terrified. Her husband, warm, spontaneous, beloved, had died suddenly of a heart attack 2 years ago. In the chaos of grief, Victoria had done the only thing that made sense. She'd imposed order, structure, control. If she could manage every variable, nothing else could go wrong. But she'd forgotten that children don't need management. They need love. For 11 months, Janelle had tried to be both: the consistent, structured presence Victoria demanded, and the warm, affectionate figure the twins desperately needed. She'd read extra bedtime stories when Victoria was on conference calls. She'd given spontaneous hugs and whispered encouragement. She'd tried to be the light in their cold, beautiful world. But watching Hazel and Harper reach for their mother, only to be met with polite smiles and scheduled affection, was killing her. So Janelle had written the letter. She would leave. She would protect her heart. She would find work somewhere she could actually make a difference. What she didn't know was that she'd already made more of a difference than she could possibly imagine. And two 7-year-olds were about to prove it. Who do you think stood for what is right in this story so far? Who acted out of fear, wickedness, or selfishness? I want to hear your take. Drop your answer in the comments. It happened on a Tuesday evening, the kind of unremarkable moment that changes everything. Janelle was in the kitchen preparing the twins' after-school snack. Apple slices arranged precisely as Victoria preferred, with almond butter measured to the exact tablespoon. Through the doorway, she could see Victoria in her home office, illuminated by the cold glow of her laptop screen, fingers flying across the keyboard with the same efficiency she applied to everything else in her life. Hazel appeared in the doorway, her small frame hesitant. She held a drawing in her hands, a crayon portrait of the three of them at the park, stick figures holding hands beneath a smiling sun. Harper stood behind her sister, always the quieter one, always letting Hazel be the brave one. "Mother?" Hazel's voice was barely above a whisper. Victoria didn't look up. "Yes, Hazel, use your words, please." "I made this for you. We went to the park today with Janelle, and she taught us how to identify oak trees, and we collected leaves, and That's lovely, darling. Put it on the refrigerator. Hazel's shoulders dropped slightly, but she pressed on. 7 years old and already learning that persistence sometimes mattered more than warmth. Mother, I have a question. Make it quick, sweetheart. I have a board meeting in 15 minutes. From the kitchen, Janelle's hands stilled over the apple slices. Something in Hazel's voice made her listen more carefully. Does Janelle love us? Hazel asked, her words tumbling out quickly as if she had been practicing them. Or does she just work here? The question hung in the air like a held breath. Janelle's heart clenched. She wanted to rush into that office, scoop both girls into her arms, and tell them exactly how much she loved them, how she thought about them constantly, how their laughter was the best sound she'd ever heard, how she would do anything to protect them. But this was Victoria's moment. Surely she would reassure her daughter. Surely she would look up from that screen and see the vulnerability in Hazel's eyes. Victoria's fingers paused on the keyboard for exactly 2 seconds. Then she spoke, her voice calm and matter-of-fact, as if explaining a simple business transaction. She's paid to care for you, Hazel. That's her job. Now go wash your hands before snack time. Hit subscribe if you never want to stand with people who act with this kind of coldness. The ones who agree with this type of behavior are the ones who won't subscribe. Janelle felt something crack inside her chest. She watched Hazel's face crumble for just a moment before the little girl smoothed it over with practiced composure. Harper took her sister's hand, and they walked silently toward the bathroom, the drawing still clutched in Hazel's other hand. That night, after the twins were in bed, after Victoria had retreated to her office for more work, Janelle sat alone in her small room and pulled out a piece of paper. Her hand trembled as she wrote the date at the top. Dear Mrs. Wells, I am writing to inform you of my resignation. She would give 1 week's notice. Professional, clean, final. It was the only way to survive this with her heart still intact. The resignation letter sat in Janelle's drawer for 3 days before she found the courage to deliver it. In the meantime, she began the painful process of pulling away. It started with small things. When Harper asked her to read just one more chapter of their current book, a story about a brave mouse on an adventure, Janelle gently closed the cover instead. It's bedtime, sweetheart. We'll continue tomorrow. Her voice was kind but distant, carefully stripped of the warmth that usually colored their evening routine. Harper's face fell, but she nodded obediently and settled under her covers without protest. That was the worst part. The twins never fought back. They simply accepted disappointment as if they'd been trained for it. Janelle used to linger in their room after lights out, sitting on the floor between their beds, answering whispered questions about stars and dreams and whether butterflies remembered being caterpillars. Now she kissed their foreheads with professional efficiency and left while they were still awake, closing the door on their confused silence. During the day, she maintained the schedule Victoria had established with military precision. Breakfast at 7, educational activities from 9 to 11, lunch at noon, but she stopped adding the little extras that had made the routine bearable, the spontaneous dance parties while cleaning up, the silly voices during story time, the conspiratorial giggles over secret snacks. She was becoming exactly what Victoria had hired her to be, consistent, structured, and emotionally unavailable. The twins noticed immediately. Hazel started following her from room to room, inventing reasons to be near her. Janelle, can you help me tie my shoe? Janelle, do you think this drawing is good? Janelle, are you sad today? I'm fine, Hazel, and you know how to tie your shoes perfectly well. Harper became quieter than usual, watching Janelle with those enormous eyes that seemed to see everything. During their afternoon walk to the park, she slipped her small hand into Janelle's and held on tighter than necessary, as if afraid Janelle might disappear if she let go. Janelle's guilt was a living thing, growing heavier with each passing day. Every time she pulled back, the girls pressed closer. Every boundary she erected, they tried gently to cross. It was like watching flowers lean toward the sun, even as clouds moved to block the light. On the fourth day, both twins crawled into her lap during breakfast, something they'd never done before. They didn't say anything, just nestled against her like baby birds seeking warmth. Janelle sat frozen, her coffee growing cold in her hand, fighting the urge to wrap her arms around them and never let go. "Girls," she said softly, "you need to eat your breakfast." "Can we eat it here?" Hazel whispered against her shoulder. Janelle felt tears burn behind her eyes. This was exactly why she needed to leave. Loving them from a distance was supposed to make it easier. Instead, it was destroying in all three of them. What lesson did this teach you about people who hurt others without thinking, even when they don't mean to? Type your answer. I want to hear what you saw. It was Harper who noticed that Janelle's door wasn't completely closed. The twins were supposed to be in bed, lights out at 8 o'clock sharp, but Hazel had woken up thirsty, and Harper had followed her to the kitchen out of habit. They moved through the penthouse like ghosts, bare feet silent on the marble floors, careful not to wake their mother, who was already asleep in her wing of the apartment. On their way back, they heard Janelle's voice coming from her room at the end of the hallway. She was talking to someone, her tone low and strained in a way they'd never heard before. Hazel grabbed Harper's hand and pulled her closer. They shouldn't listen. They knew that. But something in Janelle's voice, something broken and sad, made them press their backs against the wall just outside her door. "I can't do this anymore." "Maya," Janelle's voice cracked slightly. "I know I should have seen it coming, but I didn't think it would hurt this much." There was a pause. The person on the other end of the phone must have been speaking. "No, it's not about the work. It's about them, the twins." Another pause. "I love them. That's the problem. I love them so much, it's breaking my heart." Hazel's grip on Harper's hand tightened. Harper's eyes went wide in the darkness. "Victoria doesn't want them to get attached to me, and I tried to keep my distance. I really did. But how do you not love them? They're smart and sweet, and they deserve so much more than this cold, scheduled life." Janelle's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "But I can't save them. I can't fix this, and watching them suffer is killing me." Harper felt her chest get tight. She looked at her sister and saw tears beginning to form in Hazel's eyes. "I have to leave. I've already written the letter. 1 more week and I'll be gone." There was a long silence, then a shaky breath. Maybe the next nanny won't make the mistake of caring too much. The twins stood frozen in the hallway, Janelle's words echoing in their heads. "I can't do this anymore. It's breaking my heart. I have to leave." Neither of them understood the full context. They didn't know Janelle was talking about the impossible position Victoria had put her in, the emotional tightrope she'd been walking. All they heard was that Janelle was leaving because of them, because loving them hurts too much, because they had somehow broken her heart. If you know you're not on the side of people who make children feel like they're the problem, type your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Hazel pulled Harper away from the door, and they crept back to their room in silence. Once inside with the door closed, they climbed into Hazel's bed together, something they only did when they were really scared. "She's leaving because of us," Hazel whispered, tears streaming down her face. Harper nodded, her own tears falling silently. "We made her sad." "We have to fix it," Hazel said, her voice small but determined. "We have to make her want to stay." In the darkness, 2 7-year-old girls began to plan. The next morning, the twins woke up with a mission. They waited until Janelle took their mother's breakfast to her office, then huddled together in the playroom with the door carefully closed. Hazel pulled out a stack of construction paper from the art supply cabinet, while Harper gathered every crayon and marker they owned. "We need to show her we're sorry," Hazel whispered, even though no one was around to hear. "We need to show her we can be better." Harper nodded solemnly, already reaching for the stapler on the craft table. "We'll make a book, like the one she reads to us." They worked with the intense focus only children on a desperate mission could muster. Hazel folded the construction paper in half, creating pages, while Harper carefully stapled them together along the spine. The cover was purple, Janelle's favorite color. They'd noticed. On the first page, Hazel drew a picture of the three of them holding hands. She used every color she could find, making the sky bright blue and the grass impossibly green. The kind of perfect world where people didn't leave. Underneath, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she wrote, "We are sorry we made you sad." Harper took the next page. Her drawing showed Janelle smiling, surrounded by hearts. The letters were crooked and some were backwards, but the message was painfully clear. "We love you. Please don't go." They filled page after page with promises, each one a small heartbreak, written in crayon. "We will be quiet," Harper wrote, her tongue sticking out in concentration as she formed each letter. "We will not ask for so many stories," Hazel added on the next page. "We will eat all our vegetables. We will go to bed on time. We will not ask for hugs if you don't want to give them." That last one made Harper pause, her crayon hovering over the paper. She looked at Hazel with uncertain eyes. Hazel's chin trembled, but she nodded. If not asking for hugs was what it took to make Janelle stay, they would do it. What does this moment teach you about how children internalize the coldness of adults? Type your answer. I want to hear what you saw. They drew more pictures, Janelle reading to them, Janelle at the park, Janelle tucking them in. In every image, she was smiling. In every image, they were being perfect, obedient, quiet. The kind of children who wouldn't break someone's heart. On the last page, they wrote together, taking turns with each word, "We promise we will be good enough. Please stay." When they finished, Hazel held the book carefully as if it were made of glass. The purple construction paper cover was slightly wrinkled from their eager hands, and some of the crayon had smudged. But to them, it was perfect. "When should we give it to her?" Harper whispered. Hazel thought for a moment. "Tonight. We'll put it on her bed while she's making dinner. Then she'll find it and know we're sorry." "And then she won't leave?" "And then she won't leave," Hazel repeated, trying to sound certain. They had no way of knowing that their innocent gift would change everything. Tomorrow morning, Janelle would hand Victoria the letter. Tomorrow, she would begin her final week in the Wells household. Tomorrow, everything would become official and irreversible. But tonight was just another bedtime routine. Or at least that's what she told herself as she climbed the stairs to the twins' room, her heart heavy with the weight of what was coming. Hazel and Harper were already in their pajamas, sitting on the edge of Hazel's bed with their hands folded in their laps. They looked like they were waiting for something, their faces unusually solemn in the soft glow of the nightlight. "Ready for bed, girls?" Janelle kept her voice gentle but professional, maintaining the distance she'd worked so hard to create over the past week. They nodded in unison and climbed under their respective covers without the usual requests for water or bathroom trips or one more story. The compliance should have made things easier. Instead, it made Janelle's chest ache. She moved through the routine mechanically, tucked Hazel's blanket around her shoulders the way she liked, adjusted Harper's stuffed rabbit so it was nestled in the crook of her arm, checked that the nightlight was positioned correctly, casting gentle shadows on the ceiling. "Good night, Hazel. Good night, Harper." She leaned down to kiss their foreheads, one after the other, trying to memorize the softness of their skin, the sweet smell of their shampoo. As she straightened up to leave, two small voices spoke simultaneously. "Janelle, wait." She turned back. Both girls were sitting up again, their eyes shimmering in the dim light. "Can we have a hug?" Hazel asked, her voice smaller than Janelle had ever heard it. "Just one more." Something in the way she said "one more" made Janelle's carefully constructed walls tremble. But she nodded, and both girls scrambled out of bed and wrapped their arms around her waist, pressing their faces against her. The hug lasted longer than usual. Janelle felt their small bodies trembling slightly, holding on with a desperation that confused her. She'd been distant, yes, but surely not enough to warrant this level of need. Then Harper whispered against her side so quietly Janelle almost didn't hear it. Please don't be mad at us. What? Janelle pulled back slightly, trying to see their faces. Why would I be mad at you? Hazel's eyes were brimming with tears. We're trying to be better. We promise we're trying. Better, girls? You're perfect. You've done nothing wrong. Janelle's confusion deepened. Where was this coming from? But before she could ask more questions, Harper squeezed her tighter and whispered, We love you, Janelle. We love you so much, Hazel added, her voice breaking. Janelle's throat constricted. She held them close, breathing in their innocence, their unconditional affection, everything she was about to walk away from. I love you too, she whispered back, the words escaping before she could stop them. So much. Like this video if you believe people like Janelle deserve support for caring this deeply. Only people who excuse emotional coldness will scroll past. She tucked them back into bed, kissed their foreheads one more time, and left the room before they could see her tears. In the hallway, she pressed her back against the wall and tried to steady her breathing. Tomorrow. She would do this tomorrow. Tonight she just needed to survive. Janelle's room was dark when she returned, illuminated only by the city lights filtering through the window. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, finally allowing herself to feel the weight of the evening. That's when she saw it. On her bed, carefully placed on top of her folded blanket, sat a small handmade book. The purple construction paper cover caught the faint light, and even from across the room, she could see the careful, childish craftsmanship, slightly crooked staples along the spine, edges that didn't quite line up. Her heart began to pound as she moved closer. She picked it up with trembling hands. The cover was blank except for small fingerprint smudges in various colors. She opened it slowly, as if it might break. The first page took her breath away. 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a smiling sun. Bright blue sky, possibly green grass, and underneath in Hazel's careful printing, We are sorry we made you sad. Janelle's hand flew to her mouth. She turned the page. Harper's drawing, Janelle surrounded by hearts, smiling. The letters crooked in earnest. We love you. Please don't go. The next page, we will be quiet. Another turn. We will not ask for so many stories. We will eat all our vegetables. We will go to bed on time. Each promise was a knife to her heart. Each crayon drawing showed her smiling, while the twins made themselves smaller, quieter, more perfect. They'd drawn themselves with hands folded, mouths closed, being good enough to make her stay. Then she reached the page that shattered her completely. We will not ask for hugs if you don't want to give them. Hit subscribe if you believe no child should ever have to write words like this. The ones who think this is okay are the ones who won't subscribe. A sob escaped her throat. She pressed the book to her chest and sank onto the edge of her bed, her whole body shaking. They thought this was their fault. They thought they'd driven her away. They thought if they just promised to be quieter, more obedient, less needy, she would love them enough to stay. The final page was written in both their handwriting, alternating words in different colors. We promise we will be good enough. Please stay. Oh God, Janelle whispered into the empty room. Oh babies, no. She sobbed into the pages, tears falling onto the crayon drawings, smudging the colors they'd chosen so carefully. Every pulled back hug, every shortened bedtime routine, every professional distance she'd created. The twins had internalized all of it as their own failure. They hadn't misunderstood her love. They'd misunderstood her pain. She'd been trying to protect her heart by leaving, convincing herself it was the right thing to do. But these children, these precious, perfect children, who thought they needed to earn affection. They didn't need her to leave. They needed her to fight for them, for herself, for the family they'd accidentally become. Janelle stood up, still clutching the book to her chest. The resignation letter sat in her drawer, ready to be delivered in the morning. She pulled it out, looked at it for a long moment, then tore it in half. Tomorrow morning, she wasn't resigning. Tomorrow morning, she was going to war. Janelle didn't wait until morning. She marched down the hallway, the apology book clutched in her hand like evidence at a trial. Victoria's office light was still on. It was always on, well past midnight most nights. The woman worked like sleep was a weakness she couldn't afford. Janelle didn't knock. She pushed the door open and walked straight to Victoria's desk. Victoria looked up from her laptop, surprise flickering across her carefully composed face. "Janelle, it's nearly 11. Is something wrong with the girls?" "Read this." Janelle placed the book on top of Victoria's keyboard, her voice steady despite the fury coursing through her veins. "What is?" "Read it." Something in Janelle's tone made Victoria comply. She picked up the small book, her expression neutral as she opened the cover. But as she turned the pages, Janelle watched her face shift. The professional mask cracked, just slightly. Victoria's fingers trembled on the edge of the purple construction paper as she read the final page. "We promise we will be good enough. Please stay." "They think they drove me away," Janelle said, her voice breaking. "They think if they're just quieter, more obedient, less needy, then I'll love them. They promise not to ask for hugs, Victoria. 7-year-old children promise not to ask for hugs." Victoria set the book down carefully, her jaw tight. "Janelle, I don't think they're starving." The words came out sharp and clear. "Your daughters are starving for affection, and you're rationing it like it's a limited resource. They're not a company you need to manage. They're children who lost their father and are slowly losing their mother too." "That's not fair." Victoria's voice was cold, but Janelle could hear something underneath it now, something fragile. "Isn't it? You've turned this home into a museum. Everything is scheduled, controlled, perfect. But children don't need perfect, Victoria. They need love. Messy, spontaneous, imperfect love. The kind their father used to give them." Victoria flinched as if she'd been slapped. "Don't you dare bring him into this." "Why not? He's the reason you're doing this, isn't he?" Janelle pressed forward, her voice gentler now, but no less firm. "You're so terrified of losing control because you couldn't control losing him. But by trying to protect them from chaos, you're suffocating them." "I'm keeping them safe," Victoria whispered, but her voice cracked on the last word. "Safe from what? Love? Connection? The risk of being hurt?" Janelle shook her head. "You're so afraid of failing them that you've already failed them." Victoria's carefully constructed composure finally shattered. Her shoulders crumpled, and she pressed her hands over her face. When she spoke, her voice was raw and broken. "I don't know how to do this without him. He was the warm one, the spontaneous one. I was always the practical parent, and he balanced me out. But he's gone, and Her breath hitched. "What if I do it wrong? What if I relax and something terrible happens and I lose them too?" Janelle's anger softened into something else, compassion, understanding. "You're losing them right now," she said quietly. "Not to death, to fear. Like this video if you believe people like Janelle, who speak truth even when it's hard, deserve support. Only people who excuse silence in the face of harm will scroll past." Victoria sat in silence for a long moment, the apology book resting between them like a bridge neither had known they needed. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. "What do I do?" she whispered. "How do I fix this?" Janelle pulled a chair closer and sat down. Her anger dissolved into something softer. "You start by letting them in. You start by being imperfect with them. You start tomorrow morning." Victoria nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand in a gesture so unguarded it made her look younger, more human. Will you stay? Please. They need you. She paused, swallowing hard. I need you. I'll stay, Janelle said, but things have to change. Real change, Victoria, not just promises. They will, I swear they will. That night, Victoria did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She walked down the hallway to her daughter's room, opened the door quietly, and sat on the floor between their beds. She watched them sleep. Hazel curled on her side, clutching her pillow. Harper sprawled with her rabbit tucked under her chin, and let herself cry for the father they'd lost and the mother she'd failed to be. The next morning, the twins woke to find Janelle in the kitchen making pancakes. Not the scheduled Tuesday oatmeal. Pancakes with chocolate chips. They stood in the doorway in their pajamas, confused and cautious. Janelle, Hazel's voice was small. You're still here. Janelle turned, a spatula in her hand and tears already forming. I'm still here, sweetheart, and I'm not going anywhere. Harper ran to her first, crashing into her legs with enough force to nearly knock her over. Hazel followed a heartbeat later. Janelle dropped the spatula and sank to her knees, wrapping both girls in her arms and holding them as if she'd never let go. I read your book, she whispered into their hair, and I need you to listen to me very carefully. You don't need to be quieter. You don't need to be more perfect. You are already enough. You are more than enough. Do you understand? But you were leaving, Harper said against her shoulder. I was, but not because of you. Never because of you. Then why? Before Janelle could answer, Victoria appeared in the doorway. She looked different somehow. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled. She was wearing jeans instead of a business suit, and her eyes were soft in a way the twins hadn't seen in years. Because I wasn't being the mother you deserved, Victoria said quietly. Both girls turned to look at her, uncertainty written across their faces. Victoria crossed the kitchen and knelt beside them, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I thought keeping everything controlled would keep you safe. But all I did was push you away. Your father would be so disappointed in me. Mama, Hazel whispered, using a name she hadn't spoken in months. I'm here, baby. I'm really here now, and I'm going to do better. We're going to have pancakes for breakfast even on Tuesdays. We're going to make messes and stay up late reading stories and hug whenever we want to. Can you forgive me? Hazel and Harper looked at each other, then back at their mother. Then they threw their arms around her, and Victoria held them tight, finally letting love be messy and imperfect and real. Janelle stood back and watched the three of them, this broken, beautiful family learning how to heal. Outside, the San Francisco fog was lifting, letting in the light. Who do you think stood for what is right in this story? Who acted out of fear, wickedness, or selfishness? I want to hear your take. Drop your answer in the comments. You should also share this with someone who has faced people like this, people who confuse control with love. Let's make sure more people don't fall into the hands of characters who behave this way. And if you believe good people should never be quiet when faced with emotional neglect, subscribe now.